So today we will begin Canto 2. In the last weeks we have been reading about the symbol dawn, which is, as it were, a kind of prophecy or omen of Savitri's victory. But she wakes up to the darkness of knowing that today is the day when Shraddhavan must die. So I'll start reading from the beginning of the canto. It just continues on. Awhile, withdrawn in secret fields of thought, her mind moved in a many-imaged past that lived again and saw its end approach. Dying, it lived imperishably in her. Transient and vanishing from transient eyes, invisible, a fateful ghost of self, it bore the future on its phantom breast. Along the fleeting events, far backward trail, regressed the stream of the insistent hours. And on the bank of the mysterious flood, peopled with well-loved forms now seen no more, and the subtle images of things that were, her witness spirit stood, reviewing time. All that she once had hoped and dreamed and been flew past her, eagle-winged through memory's skies. As in a many-hued, flaming inner dawn, her life's broad highways and its sweet bypaths lay mapped to her sun-clear recording view. From the bright country of her childhood's days and the blue mountains of her soaring youth, and the paradise groves and peacock wings of love, to joy clutched under the silent shadow of doom, in a last turn where heaven raced with hell, 12 passionate months led in a day of fate. So this passage is about time and memory. As Savitri wakes up on this day, which she knows is going to be so fateful for her. This is the day when Shraddhavan must die. She doesn't, she's gathering strength, but she's also remembering. We'll start this side. You can begin, Narendra.
Canto 2, the issue. Awhile, withdrawn in secret fields of thought, a mind moved in many imaged past that live again and saw its hand approach. Dying, it lived imperishably in her. Transient and vanishing from transient eyes, invisible, a fateful ghost of self, it bore the future on its phantom breast.
Thank you. So a while, for a short time, she lies there withdrawn in secret fields of thought. The mind can go wandering in those secret fields of the past. So her mind is moving in a past which is full of images, of pictures, snapshots. And that past lives again in her, and she sees that past coming to its end in her. That past lived again and saw the end of the past approaching. But although that past is dying, it still lives imperishably in her. She will not forget it. The past, the events of the past are transient. They happen and then they're past, they're over. And the events of the past vanish from our eyes which also don't last very long, our physical eyes. The past is invisible, and yet it's a fateful ghost of self. It has happened to us. It's part of our self. And although we see it only in an image, it's not visible to other people, that past is a kind of ghost, a phantom being which is there. It has prepared the present and the future. In that way, it is fateful. So it's carrying the future on its phantom breast. And here, with this line, Aurobindo introduces the image that's going to run through the next line of time, of past, present, and future as a river, a stream, a connected stream. So that flowing of time, is it flowing forwards or is it flowing backwards? Often it seems to us that we remember more recent things and then we go back and further back and further back. And it's difficult to decide whether we are being carried along on a stream of time into the future, or whether we are standing still and this river of time is coming towards us and passing us and carrying memories away with it. You can see how you envisage time. But this idea of time as a river, as a stream of continuous moments, it's a very poetic but usual thought. Martin.
Along the fleeting events far backward train, regressed the stream of the insistent hours, and on the bank of the mysterious flood, peopled with well-loved forms now seen no more. and the subtle images of things that were. The witness spirit stood, reviewing time.
Yes. So it's as if Savitri's spirit is watching all these, this stream of images. She's standing on the bank of the river and watching the flow of the stream. There's a particular event. It's fleeting, it doesn't last long, but it has a backward trail. There were the events that led up to it. So that stream seems to go backwards as we follow it in our mind. Regressed, the stream of the insistent hours. And she's standing there on the bank of this mysterious flow, this flood of time, which is peopled, it's full of well-loved forms that she's seeing only in memory. She doesn't see them habitually anymore, no? And she's seeing the subtle images of things that were in the past. There she is. Savitri's witness spirit is standing stably and reviewing in her mind time past. Andras, you read?
All that she once had hoped and dreamed and been, flew past her eagle winged through memory's skies. As in a many-hued, flaming inner dawn, her life's broad highways and its sweet bypass lay mapped to her sun-clear recorded view. From the bright country of her childhood's days, and the blue mountains of her soaring youth, and the paradise groves and peacock wings of love, to joy clutch under the silent shadow of me, and last turn her heaven raised to the sky.
One more line.
12 passionate months led in a day.
So, Aurobindo is assuming that we know the story. He doesn't have to unfold the story to us. In the first sentence that Andras read, the 2 lines, Aurobindo changes the image. It's not any longer a river. It's memories flying past her like birds on strong eagle wings, flying through the skies of memory. Everything that she herself has been, everything that she's hoped and dreamed of, she's remembering all that. These memories are flying past her in her mind. And then again he changes the image. It's as if she's standing above her life and seeing it as if mapped out, as if she's seeing it from the top of a high mountain, or as if she's seeing it drawn on a map. She sees it in very brilliant colors, as in a many-hued, flaming inner dawn, a dawn of inner consciousness. She sees everything so clearly and brightly. She sees the broad highways of her life on that map, and she sees its sweet bypaths, the little lanes and pathways that may not have been so important, but still they're very sweet, and she remembers them. So she can see it all from the time of her childhood, the bright country of her childhood's days. And then her youth. It's as if on this map these are blue mountains, high hills, and there she has been herself able to soar, to fly high. And then there's the time when she has lived in the forest, where in the forest she has met Satyavan. So that's a time of paradise groves and peacock wings. But then that great happiness of love turns to a time when she's had to hold tight onto whatever joy she could, clutched under this silent shadow of doom once she knows that Satyavan must die. It's like a terrible shadow, no? And there's this last turn where she's living with Satyavan, and that is heaven, but at the same time there's this hell of fear and grief that she has to pass through. These 12 passionate months that she has spent with him, it's all been leading up to this day of fate. Anybody would like to ask anything or share anything?
I have a question about 12 passionate months later, the day of fate. You have a special about fate and 12 months, passionate months.
Well, because when she announced to her parents that she's met Satyavan and she's going to marry him, then on that very day, Narad told her that in 12 months from this day, Satyavan is going to die. So this is the 12 passionate months. These are the times of intense love and joy of union, but also this terrible ordeal of the foreknowledge of death and the heart's grief and pain. And it's all been leading up to this day of fate, this day when Satyavan must die. When it's fixed, no? Yeah. Nothing can change it. Yes, Tony.
About line 20.
Yes.
The blue mountains. Are they blue because they're touching the sky?
They are mountains that we see in the distance. I think they are blue, no? Painters often do that, you know, in the background of the painting. There are the blue mountains. Of course, those blue mountains are very romantic with their forests and their birds and animals and so on. And here, it's these all those high hopes and dreams of youth, I think, is what it suggests.
To soaring also, no? Like
yes.
Soaring to the sky, so mountain soaring.
Yes. All this. For most of us, perhaps, it's a very special time, no, of our youth, when we have such high hopes of the future. Yeah. So, Samadashan.
An absolute supernatural darkness falls on the man sometimes when he draws near to God. An hour arrives when fail all nature's needs, forced out from the protective ignorance and flung back on his naked primal need. he at the length must cast from him his surface soul, and be the ungathered entity within. That hour had fallen now on Savitri.
Thank you. So this is an experience which many mystics have spoken about, this night of God, or this cloud of unknowing, this absolute supernatural darkness that falls on a human being sometimes when he's coming very, very close to the divine, perhaps without knowing it. There's a sense that everything that we depend on in nature, all nature's means, nothing can help us anymore. An hour arrives when all nature's means fail us. And then what happens inwardly is that we get forced out of this protective ignorance, this veil or body of ignorance that we're living in most of the time, which protects us both from the worst things and the best things. But in moments like that, we are forced out of that protecting ignorance, and we are just flung back on our naked, primal need. The one basic thing, the existential thing that we need in order to survive. So for a human being, this means casting off the surface soul, that projection of our deep innermost soul that enables us to meet all the events of life. But that's no use anymore. We have to throw that protective outer soul away, and we have to recognize that we are the ungarbed entity within. Ungarbed means naked, without any covering, no clothes, nothing. We're just absolutely unprotected, unveiled, just blankly, purely, essentially, the ungarbed entity within, the essence of ourselves. That hour had fallen now on Savitri. So this darkness that she is experiencing is somehow a reflection of that utter darkness at the beginning of the first canto. She's more conscious, but it's this state of helplessness, of not knowing how to be.
What does it indicate? Primal need, the casting away of the experiencing soul, that's the primal need?
Of the surface soul. The primal need. What do we need? Our basic need is for survival, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it. Well, how can I live through this moment? Something like that. And actually, that's why these hours of absolute supernatural darkness, or these moments of absolute supernatural darkness, are really a blessing, because these are the moments when we come really in touch with who we really are.
What is this expression, ki atre, what does it mean?
At last means all this time we've been living with the surface soul. Now this moment has come, and at last we have to throw away the surface soul and be what we really are, without any covering, any support, nothing.
Surface soul is like same experiencing soul. Is there any difference?
I haven't heard this expression, experiencing soul. Aurobindo speaks about an outer soul of desire. But we can also think of it being our essential personality, which is a projection of our innermost soul. But it's projected in front to have all, yes, as you say, all the experiences of life. Yes.
It's the same as psychic being then.
It's not the same as the psychic being. The psychic being would be this ungarbed entity within.
Ungarbed was a soul and psychic being was the outer soul.
No, the psychic being is your...
Yes. Okay, I get it, the basic ungarbed soul.
Let's leave it there. It's because it's more complex than that. Anyway. Now we'll see what this means for Savitri. Chandra, you read.
At points she has it where life must be played, or in the unquote, element eyes, her will must cancel her body's display. For only the upward spirit's timeless power can lift the law imposed by birth in time. Only the self that builds this figure of self can rest the fixed, interminable life that joins these changing lanes, this numberless lives, these new oblivious personalities, and keep still logging in our conscious acts the trail of old forgotten thoughts and deeds, discern the legacy of our buried selves, the
Burdensome.
has she to our vanished forms, accepted blinded by the body and soul.
Yes. So she's reached a point where her whole life must be meaningless unless she can wake up, be conscious in her unborn element, her eternal being. And her will must be awake in that eternal being and be able to cancel, to change, to cross out the body's destiny, the fate, the physical fate, the destiny of her physical being. And then he explains that it's only our transcendent part, the unborn spirit's timeless power, that power which doesn't belong to this universe, which is transcendent, beyond space and time. Only that power can take away from us the yoke imposed by birth in time. When we are born in time, we accept this yoke, this grip of ignorance and death and fate and material destiny. Our true eternal self has built up this figure of self which we are. And only that self that's built up, this figure of the self that we are, can raise, it's like erase, can wipe out the fixed, interminable line. It's such a long line, we can't see the beginning or the end of it. The line that's joining all our lives, all these changing names, these numberless lives, these new personalities that have completely forgotten about all the other personalities. That's our we can say our karmic past. There's a line, a chain that is connecting all these lives in time and space. And that line still keeps lurking in the actions that we are conscious of. It keeps lurking there, the trail, the trace of things that we have thought and done long ago in the past. We've inherited from those other selves, we've inherited a legacy. A legacy is something that somebody dies and leaves you some money or some property or a gift. But you might not want that legacy. It might be a burden. It's only the transcendent self, the true eternal individuality, that can wipe all that out. This burdensome airship, this heavy load of all those things, those forms that we've been in the past. They seem to be vanished, but the trail of them is still lurking, and it's still accepted blindly by the body and this surface soul. It just accepts them. But we might think that it's not possible to cancel out that line at all. But he says it is possible. And that's what Savitri has to do now. Her will must be awake in her unborn element, in her transcendent self. And that must cancel this destiny of her body, that she's married Satyavan and he's going to have to die and she will be a widow and all these tragic consequences. I consider these very, very important lines. I mean, for us.
They explain very clearly the rebirth principle, all that is, what is the relevance of our early lives.
Yes. Yeah. And he goes on explaining that. Dana, would you read, please?
An episode in an unremembered tale, its beginning lost, its motive unplot concealed. A once living story has prepared and made our present fate, child of past energies. The fixity of the cosmic sequences, present with hidden inevitable ends, she must be dislodged by the soul's force. Her past, the block on the immortal's road, make a race withdrawn and shake anew her fail.
Yes. If we read one of these old Indian epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, they're full of episodes, stories that in a way are complete in themselves, but they may be linked to some earlier story, some earlier episode. The way we use this word nowadays, it's for serials on television. No? There's the beginning, episode one of series 1, and then you go on. There are more and more episodes. So each life is like an episode, and we don't remember the beginning of the story. It's an unremembered tale. We don't remember the beginning, and we don't remember the end. No? Its beginning is lost. And the motive and the plot, why is all this happening? That's hidden. It's a story that was once living. It's prepared and made what we are living now, our present fate. Our present fate is the child of past energies, the result of things that have happened, and we don't know anything about them. So what Savitri has to do is to disrupt, she has to break this link, this fixity of these cosmic sequences, this chain of events that are fastened with these hidden, invisible links. We can't see all those connections. No? What she has to do is to break it, break the series, the sequences. And by the force of her soul, and this is not the surface soul, this is the eternal soul, she must dislodge, like moving a big rock out of her path, no? Because it's a block on the road that her immortal spirit has to follow. She has to make a raised ground. I don't know whether you know there's a Latin phrase, tabula rasa. In most of the European languages we speak about this. It refers to the ancient Romans used to write records and messages on tabulae. We were speaking about it on Sunday, no?
Tablets?
They were no, they were not rock tablets. They were wooden frames, small wooden frames filled with wax, and then you had a stylus. You could write something in the wax. And when the message had been given and you didn't need that tabula anymore, you could just raise it. You could make the wax smooth again, so the message is gone. So tabula rasa, it means you wipe out the past, you make a completely new start. So that's what she has to do. She has to make a raised ground. Whatever are the conditions of her life at the moment, that all has to be made smooth and start again. She has to shape her fate anew, in a new way, not accepting this fate that she's inherited from the past.
But she cleaned every memory from the past through this.
I don't think it's so much the memories. She was retaining all those memories, but it's what she has to do is to wipe out the karma, the consequences. And so that raises an interesting question. I remember when the very first time we started reading this poem together more than 20 years ago, the question was raised that Savitri is an avatar. She's a divine being who's come on earth and is living as a human being. Does she have all this past karma, no, shaping her fate? And it was like something miraculous that one of the people in the group stumbled on a letter of Sri Aurobindo where he says that it doesn't matter how divine the being is, if they accept birth in time, then this yoke is imposed on them, and they have to carry a part of the general human karma. And that's precisely what she has come to change.
He's describing more of our sequence than hers. Here it's more for us, what happens to us, human beings.
We can understand it like this, no? That certain things are happening to us, perhaps simply because they just have to happen because of some inner need of ours. But of course, if we look carefully at what Aurobindo has written about karma, he doesn't accept this popular notion of crime and punishment. No. He's written about it in The Life Divine and elsewhere. Instead, he said that yes, it is true that every action has an equal reaction, but ultimately it is this self that decides. So it can decide when to accept the consequences, when it will be useful in the development of the being, you know. And of course there are stories like that in the Mahabharata also. So, but this idea that just by being born as a human being, you take on part of the human load. That's what's expressed here. Sorry, Tom.
Like you chanted before,
Yeah.
then it seems difficult to disrupt the past.
Yes. It's really difficult. It's really difficult.
It shows the way in perfection, like you have to be, like one of the ways is to make yourself perfect.
You can't really.
Then you are free from.
You can't really make yourself perfect. So this process, I mean, here, this is just a little introduction. No? This is the overture to the symphony. At a later stage in Book 7, Aurobindo will show us how Savitri realizes her more than human self. And then she's able to take on this mission of freeing the human soul from the grip of ignorance and death. We'll just read the next little passage because it's so interesting. Joel.
The colloquy of the original gods, meeting on the borders of the unknown, where souls relate with embodied nothingness, must be wrestled out on dangerous dim background. Where being must confront its formless cause against the universe, weigh its single self. On the bare peak where self is alone with naught, and life has no sense and love no place to stand, she must plead her case upon extinction's verge. In the worth-death cave, her cold life's helpless claim, and vindicate her right to be and love.
Yes. A colloquy. A colloquy is a conversation, a debate, a speaking together. Colloquy, speaking together. But this is a conversation between, he says, the original gods. And these original gods are meeting on the borders of the unknown. the debate of Savitri's soul with embodied nothingness. This refers to what happens in books 9 and 10, this debate of Savitri's soul with the god of death. That's what he is, just embodied nothingness. That has to be wrestled out on a dangerous, dim background. And more than that, her being, her individual existence, essential existence, has to confront, to face its formless cause, its origin. And it has to weigh, as if there's a pair of balances, no? Its single self, her little individual self, against the whole universe and all the universal laws. It's as if there's a high mountain peak. Nothing grows there. It's completely bare and barren. That's where self meets nothingness. And there's no meaning to life. And love has no place to stand. But there, and that bare peak, she has to fight for her cause, like in a court of law, to plead your case in front of a judge, no, or a jury, and people listening. And this is a life and death matter. This is on the verge of extinction. This court is happening in the world's death cave. There she has to uphold the claim, the right of life, to be, to delight, to enjoy. She has to vindicate, to justify her individual right to go on existing and to go on loving. This is, in a way, the theme of the poem. It's as if there's a debate, in fact there is a debate, between the eternal yes and the eternal no. And who is going to prevail? That's the issue. It's the title of this canto. Yes.
The border, Shraddhavan, of the unknown is after the Auroville. Sorry.
No, for all of us, the border of the unknown is somewhere else, no? There's what we know, and there's what we don't know. And there's a border between the two. So if something is happening on that border of the unknown, it means on the verge of completely unexplored territory of experience and knowledge and everything. You don't know what's going to happen. There's no way of telling what can possibly happen. We'll stop there for today.
A while, withdrawn in secret fields of thought, her mind moved in a many-imaged past that lived again and saw its end approach. Dying, it lived imperishably in her. Transient and vanishing from transient eyes. Invisible, a fateful ghost of self, it bore the future on its phantom breast. Along the fleeting events' far backward trail, regressed the stream of the insistent hours. And on the bank of the mysterious flood, peopled with well-loved forms now seen no more, and the subtle images of things that were, her witness spirit stood, reviewing time. All that she once had hoped and dreamed and been flew past her eagle-winged through memory's skies. As in a many-hued, flaming inner dawn, her life's broad highways and its sweet bypaths lay mapped to her sun-clear recording view. From the bright country of her childhood's days, and the blue mountains of her soaring youth, and the paradise groves and peacock wings of love, to joy clutched under the silent shadow of doom, in a last turn where heaven raced with hell. 12 passionate months led in a day of fate. An absolute supernatural darkness falls on man sometimes when he draws near to God. An hour arrives when fail all nature's means. Forced out from the protecting ignorance, and flung back on his naked primal need, he at length must cast from him his surface soul, and be the ungarbed entity within. That hour had fallen now on Savitri, a point she had reached where life must be in vain, or in her unborn element awake, her will must cancel her body's destiny. For only the unborn spirit's timeless power can lift the yoke imposed by birth in time. Only the self that builds this figure of self can raise the fixed, interminable line that joins these changing names, these numberless lives, these new oblivious personalities, and keeps still lurking in our conscious acts the trail of old forgotten thoughts and deeds. Disown the legacy of our buried selves, the burdensome airship to our vanished forms, accepted blindly by the body and soul. An episode in an unremembered tale, its beginning lost, its motive and plot concealed, a once living story has prepared and made our present fate, child of past energies. The fixity of the cosmic sequences, fastened with hidden inevitable links, she must disrupt, dislodge by her soul's force her past, a block on the immortal's road. Make a raised ground and shape anew her fate. A colloquy of the original gods, meeting upon the borders of the unknown. Her soul's debate with embodied nothingness must be wrestled out on a dangerous dim background. Her being must confront its formless cause. Against the universe weigh its single self. On the bare peak where self is alone with naught, and life has no sense, and love no place to stand, she must plead her case upon extinction's verge. In the world's death cave, uphold life's helpless claim, and vindicate her right to be and love.